So in today's session, we are starting about understanding what is happening with our application environment, what is the application security going on. So if you look at some of the most important reports like the Mandiant, like the Homeland Security reports, or even Gartner reports, we get to see that a vast report as well. We get to see that the majority of the attacks happen on the application segment because application is the easiest target available to the hacker. It's published and he tries all the ways just to exploit and get into an application. When we talk about a customer environment, like what exists in a customer environment, when we talk about, when we look in our organizations, we see that some of our organizations are compelled. I use the word compelled because for various reasons are compelled to use some legacy software where we are not allowed to go beyond the legacy software because of some restrictions, maybe the compatibility issues or many things. We in our organization also have in-house development where we have a team who develops the applications for us. We call them the custom application. We outsource some of us. What we do, instead of having a developers, we outsource the developers. Let me just enable the laser point for you guys. Okay, I think it's better now. So we outsource the applications as well, where we say we outsource the development activity to a third party company who develops the application source code and then give that source code to us and deploy it. But one challenge that I see in this particular region is that whenever we outsource the development activity to a third party company, they don't share the source code with us just because they want to keep the AMC or local support contract with them. But yeah, that is what we usually see in our environment today. And we sometimes prefer to use the open source tools as well in our environment. We also use the commercial tools from Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, you name, all big names. So in all aspects, what is expected of the IT security team is that despite of having a varied kind of environment where you have legacy software, in-house development, outsourced, be it any kind of environment, what is expected of the IT security team is that we manage the compliance. When we say compliance, we are talking about the security. We ensure that all our applications are monitored and protected from breaches. So now, what this is a thought process that in order to achieve a secure software development life cycle, we need to have three things in place. The very first thing is that the development. If my organization is using custom built applications, either developed by my own developers or I'm outsourcing this to a third party company, here involves a big threat for me where development is happening. And we all are aware that majority of the developers are logic oriented and do not consider security in their coding best practices. That gets amiss. So the very first point is we need to ensure that the code that is being developed is secure. Once we have the secure code available, we go ahead with the deployment mode where we start deploying the application. Our business teams first gets the access to it just to see whether the business logic for which the application has been built is executed in a proper way, is if business logic is being achieved or not. Yes, if business team says wonderful, the application is built as per our logic, as per our requirement, fine. Then before the application moves on to the production, there has to be a second level of security check. Why is second level of security check required when we already have first level of security check? In the second stage, two kind of applications get in. First is the custom built application, for which we have a secure code now from process number one. The second thing is there may be applications for which we do not have the source code. And it can be I downloaded a database from the Oracle. I downloaded SAP. I downloaded some applications from Microsoft. I do not have the source code available for that. But how is vulnerability getting into picture? Vulnerability gets into picture during the deployment phase. The server that I have provided for the database, is that fully protected? Networking components might have some breach. The application that is being installed and which is communicating to the database, is that secure? Is there a secure communication? Am I using SSL or am I using TLS? This makes a big difference. All these things are a part of compliance check. So the system level scenarios or the vulnerability assessment level scenarios has to be done at the stage 2. At the stage 2, once we get a report that yes, there are no vulnerabilities existing, the security team gives an approval to move towards the stage 3, which is production. So now, production, we have a WAF, we have an application. Is that okay for us? No. We need to have continuous monitoring of the application. Now, when I talk about continuous monitoring of the application, let's talk about our applications which are built by our teams. And let's talk about applications which are third party like Oracle, SAP, and the big names. So, monitoring, when we talk about monitoring, we are talking about understanding the behavior of the application, what is happening to it. Now, since we are talking about 45 since our topic is on application security, I'm talking about monitoring from point of view of security. Now, third-party applications like Oracle, SAP do have a very wonderful logging where we get information. But that information is strictly not enough. It is very limited to only certain sects of the auditing practice. On the other hand, when you talk about applications which are developed by our own teams, I just need to forget about logging. They don't even have time or they do not even consider logging as a part of their scope. Some of the times, the custom built application writes a log which even the developer doesn't understand what the log is. So at this point of time, when we talk about monitoring, we are at a stage where we have zero visibility of our custom built applications and bare minimum visibility of the third party applications. In this scenario, we need to have a process or a solution that helps us provide visibility to what is happening to these applications purely from security point of view, and it should also have the capability to integrate with our log management solutions. Maybe I might be using a SIM solution or just a Kiwi server for syslog monitoring or whatsoever. I need to have a monitoring of this. So the solution in the third phase, which is doing the monitoring, should also have the capability to share its information with the SIM solutions as well, or any other kind of solutions which can pick up the data. So if we have these three things in place, we can be assured that yes, our applications from the base level to the production are secured, are in monitoring, are monitored what is happening. And definitely we need to keep in mind that security is not always foolproof. It's not 100% secure. We cannot at any point of time, no solution can say it's 100% secure. So, but we get all mechanisms, we have tried all our best practices to ensure that we build an extremely strong application code, we deploy an extremely strong application, and we monitor it. We have checked A to Z whatever is required to have a strong application up and running. So let's talk about a scenario of last 10 years, what's happening in last 10 years. So we are in 2020, from last 2010 if we talk about. In 2010, when applications were being released, there were very few updates that were released. As in when we were progressing, the number of updates were very high. And in today's scenario, probably there are applications probably in the marketplace or in some of the organizations where we see Vulnerabilities, our patches are being released for the vulnerabilities very frequently, very frequently. Why? Because of the sophistication, because of the level of attacks that's happening. So what does it indicate? It indicates that our applications are the prime and most important factor for being exploited. That is the reason we have a huge number of updates getting released very frequently. Now, in one scenario, if we talk about our DevOps team, traditionally and even today, our DevOps team are being focused to rapidly develop applications and go for continuous delivery of applications. In this scenario of continuous delivery and rapid deployment, where is security coming into picture? Who is saying what has to be implemented to the security? Where is security being focused in our development? Where is DevOps talking about security? Are they aligning with our security teams to check what they are developing is good, bad, how strengthful it is? If in one of the reports in Gartner has suggested very strongly that the DevOps team has to collaborate and work with the security team to ensure that this code that is being developed has to be very secure. The deployment that is being done has to be very secure. If in today's scenario, if we look at the ratio of the developers to the security team members who are collaborating with the developers and to build a secure development, it's extremely very low. 80 developers to one security team members. So what is Fortify going to help us? How is Fortify helping us in this scenario? So we talk about the design. The development team designs, the architects design the application, how the application has to be, how the logic has to be achieved, and then the developers start coding. When the developers start coding the application, Fortify provides a tool called Source Code Analyzer, SCA. Fortify SCA, Source Code Analyzer. So this is one of the product from Fortify. And scanning the source code is called the static analysis, static application security testing. So first product where the developers are developing the code, we have source code analyzer. What does source code analyzer do? Source code analyzer is going to scan the source code, check what vulnerabilities are there in the developer, and then let them know. Just to give you a small idea, a small example here, how is SCA helping the developers is that, say for example, a developer has developed a web page where it is accepting the user credentials and passing on to the database. In this scenario, the developer has beautifully written the application with business logic executing flawlessly. Very nice. But the developer is accepting the value and sending it. What if I'm a hacker, I'm a bad guy, and instead of the username, I'm entering some other parameters, SQL injection. So the developer is bluntly just capturing the details and passing on to the database. So with this, as a hacker, I'll be able to build a SQL query and understand how the database is working. And I can, at one point of time, I can execute a full-fledged SQL injection attack to gather the data. If that query, if that application code, which is vulnerable, was taken and scanned through static analysis using Fortify, Fortify would have immediately identified this as a critical vulnerability and said that, developer, you are capturing the data from the user, but you are not putting a best practice there. You need to limit the user to use some specific scenarios. The user cannot enter anything apart from probably the digits, alphanumeric digits, only 8 to 10 digits, alphanumeric, no special characters. You can provide a regex and restrict the user. So in this scenario, what happens if, since Fortify suggested a best practice and the developer included in his development strategy, Now, if a hacker, when I try to execute a SQL injection, it does not accept it because the background source, the source code has rejected my input, said, man, if you want to enter something, enter alphanumeric 1 to 0 to 10 digits, 0 to 9 digits, nothing more than that. So at the code level, this is how Fortify source code analyzer help the developers develop a very valid source code, a very strong source code. We call this as the static application security testing. Now, once we have a proper well-developed source code, or we are having a third-party application which we are deploying in our environment, meaning I'm installing on a server and I'm communicating I'm making its connections to the database and I'm connecting it to the internet, multiple scenario I'm performing on this deployment for functionality. So at this level, when I'm at the deployment strategy, I'm going to use dynamic application security tool from Fortify, which is called Web Inspect. This is the dust. Today, our discussion will only be on Web Inspect. What is Web Inspect? How does it look like? What benefits it's gonna give? We'll have a look on that. So Web Inspect is gonna test our web applications and web services, and give us a report as what vulnerabilities are there, what are the remediation factors I need to take in. So based on that, we can the respective teams can fix the vulnerabilities. We'll do a rescan, and then if everything is fine, remember one thing, this is at the staging area or the test area. Then it moves on to the production. Now, when it is into the production, as I said, there has to be something which does the monitoring. So we have application defender, that is runtime application security protection. So SAST, DAST, and we have RASP, runtime application security protection, or testing, RAST, whatever you want to name it. So in this scenario, I have application defender. This is a product again from Fortify. So it installs clients within the application server. Now, this application server, this client continuously monitor the application, irrespective of whether that's a third-party built application or it is a custom-built application. It monitors the application's behavior continuously and shares the information with the SIM solutions using syslog. It shares just like the firewall or the network devices. It throws UDP output with proper information in the CEF format. All these three applications together are connected with Software Security Center. This Software Security Center is the management console. Assume this to be like a management console where I get visibility of each of the application. Anyone who logged into application SSC can tell that, okay, I have application A in the development stage. It has so many vulnerabilities, say 100 vulnerabilities. Out of 100, 10 are fixed, 90 are unfixed. I have another application XYZ in the production area where I have in the staging area where there are 10 vulnerabilities discovered and none of them are fixed. And this SSC, in addition to this management, also provides a workflow where I can assign specific vulnerabilities, where I can assign these vulnerabilities to different team members. I can say, okay, from this same console, I can say, I have 90 vulnerabilities which are not fixed in the development area, and I have a team of 5 developers. I can assign these vulnerabilities to those 5 developers so that they can log in again to SSC and they will see only the assigned vulnerabilities so that they can work and close those vulnerabilities. Similarly, I can do it for the Web Inspect as well. I can assign it to the respective systems teams or the developer team to get this closed. Apart from this entire picture, which is covering 360 degree of an application, all these 3 applications or 4 applications are on-premise. They are on-premise with a perpetual license. Only the software support needs to be renewed every year. and you get unlimited scanning functionalities. In addition to that, we do have Fortify on Demand. Fortify on Demand is a SaaS-based service. When we say SaaS-based service, we are talking about subscription. So as customers, we are allowed to buy subscription unit from Fortify, and based on this unit, I can either select my source code to scan, or I can do a web inspect scanning, or I can go ahead with the application protection unit. So the specific units get deducted for each of the scan, and each of the scan is requires a specific number of subscription units to be consumed. So all are so Fortify on demand, Fortify on premise. So Fortify has the entire suite of application available to protect your applications in a 360-degree view. If you have any questions, please write it down. After this session, I'll definitely have those questions answered. Let's have a small look at the Gartner report. We are here, Micro Focus, and probably this is the 8th year, I think, if I'm not wrong. This is the 8th year that we are into the leaders quadrant. We have the largest customer base. We have the largest languages that we support. We have the best of the best engine in terms of vulnerability assessment for web applications and web services. There's a lot more to discuss on in terms with Gartner. So when we talk about the customer experiences, a customer who has the SaaS and DaaS together, they expect 30 times better ROI because we are remediating vulnerabilities at the development stage itself, rather than it is going out to the market and we are getting to hear about the breaches. We are providing a solution where you fix the vulnerabilities at the initial level. Now, since we have a fair understanding now of what Fortify suite is all about, how an application needs to be protected, now let's have a small discussion on a specific part of the Fortify portfolio, which is dynamic application security testing. I hope you remember the product for this. The product name is Web Inspect. Now, when we talk about dynamic application security testing, we are talking about scanning two important things: the web applications, any kind of web application, and web services. If your team has web applications being used, irrespective of custom built application or third party application, if it is a web application and if you have web services in your organization, we can use those to assess their vulnerabilities. So what in dynamic application security testing, what happens is we simulate a huge number of attack on the application to assess its strength. We do a lot of exploitations. Exploitations can be selective, or it can be a full-fledged vulnerabilities to be scanned. So it provides an easy, flexible way to scan the applications. How does it do the scanning? Web Inspect scans a web application or a web service in 3 modes. The very first mode is discover. I would not say mode, I would say steps. Each of the scanning involves 3 steps. The very first step is the crawl process, where we mention it as discover, the crawling. So crawling, what happens in crawling is the application, Web Inspect is going to understand the length and breadth of the application to see how many web pages are there, what are the links, are there any email addresses, are there any usernames, or what. It goes through multiple scenarios, how many web pages are there, to if there are any broken links. It accumulates everything within crawling. Second, once crawling is done, it simultaneously starts attack process. So based on the policy that you have selected, The attack process initiates the attacking of application. It starts with various attacks like cross-site scripting, hijacking, cookies, SQL injection, uh, all certain kind of attacks. For example, if you have selected a policy, say I want to test my application using the OWASP top 10 attacks. Select the policy as OWASP top 10 attacks. It will initiate the attacks based on what OWASP has defined. If you want to go with a deeper scan, you can select all the scans. If you want a standard scan, select the standard scan. Or if you want a specific attack to happen, like a SQL injection, select only that. It gives you almost all very good flexibility to select what you want to execute, what kind of attack do you want to execute. So once the attack is in progress, then we get a report. We get a report in terms of various aspects. I'll discuss what kind of reports do we get. So these are the three major steps that are involved: discover, attack, and report. This is how a web inspect performs the dynamic application security testing. So now what happens? So if I have, just in a glance, web inspect focuses on the dynamic application security testing, which is the QA process in the pre-staging area, in the pre-production area or the staging area. So now, and do not go and try use a web inspect for your web for a production application. It might bring down the application because we are talking about exploiting the application. So always ensure that when you are using web inspect, it has to be in your staging or the test area, and it has to be an exact replica of your production application. So Web Inspect helps us scan the web applications and the web services. It saves time with a continuous integration. It helps integrate with different tools. It helps us in providing a virtual patching. It has compliance reporting, and we can optimize the application web inspect application using agent-based technology. We'll discuss that as well, agent-based technology. So in a nutshell, if I have to say, we with Fortify application security testing, dynamic application security testing, or the Fortify on demand, we get the most accurate. We have the most accurate scanner where we get the exact vulnerabilities. We get very bare minimum. We can eliminate the false positives with the whitelisting functionality that we get. We have we scale to the enterprise level with multiple sensor technology and remediation process in place. We have integration where we can the customers can automate the scanning. We do have APIs available where we provide our APIs with your tools to be combined so that automated scanning can happen. And we do have a series of reports available like PCI, the SANS reporting, OWASP, top 10, HIPAA based, NIST based, multiple report, developer report, multiple kind of reports are there. We have optimized results with scan technology, agent technology. I mean to say, if I may use Web Inspect directly to access your web browser, access your application through the browser and attack it, or I can install an agent in your web application server, and then the Web Inspect server will tell the Web Inspect agent to attack the application. Now I get more flexibility because my agent is sitting within the application server and attacking the application. I get bigger vulnerability, more stronger hold on the vulnerabilities. In addition to that, we do have on-premise and as a service. If customer says, "Man, I prefer to go as a service rather than on-premise," we do have that functionality as well. Now, a small look and feel into what Web Inspect looks like. Web Inspect quickly scans the applications, web applications and web services. Web Inspect accurately classifies the vulnerabilities in critical, high, medium, low. Some of them are best practices, and it gives a meaningful insight onto each of the vulnerability discovered. Say, for example, this is the exact view of our web application web inspect. So here you can see that this is our dashboard where we see the vulnerabilities clearly identified as critical, high, medium, low. We also do get some best practices. On the other hand, we get the live statistics, which says that when did the scan start? Is it continuously in progress or is it completed? How many network estimates? It gives network estimates as well. Here we get the details of the attacks that have been executed. Say, for example, if you talk about cross-site scripting attacks, there were 94 cross-site scripting attacks, out of which 4 are positive. It tells you what are the positive results. Here it gives you explanation of each of the vulnerability. Whatever the vulnerability you have selected, it gives you the explanation. Why is it considering? It can also give you sometimes screenshots of the application, how it behaved. And we get to see the coverage analysis. How is the coverage analysis happening? In addition, when we talk about the response, how is 45 Web Inspect help the organizations remediating? And this is the information that Web Inspect provides for each of the attack. So 45 Web Inspect provides a detailed vulnerability information saying what happened, how is the vulnerability, how is Web Inspect considering this a vulnerability. It gives you a summary and a framework. It gives you the execution saying how to verify whether this is a exploit. It tells how is this vulnerability going to impact us, and it gives how do we remediate this. It gives you the remediation, and it gives you some references. Go look into these references and validate yourself. It helps a lot. This level of information is extremely important when we start to understand. This gives a meaningful insight into the vulnerability discovered and how can we fix them. So now we have Web Inspect provides incremental scan mechanism. Say, for example, I have a scan initiated, and in the initial analysis, I said I have whitelisted a couple of vulnerabilities. I said, man, no, this is not a vulnerability. That's okay. I take the responsibility of this, but this is not a vulnerability. So whatever has been whitelisted, I can go ahead and initiate a rescan of the application while telling them that use the whitelisting that I have done, so that in the incremental scan, it removes the whitelisted scanning and then focuses on the real-time information, which is really vulnerable, which is really a vulnerability. And once the vulnerabilities are fixed, and then when we rescan the application, then it picks up incremental scan and gives us reporting on the basis of incremental scanning. Apart from providing us the GUI, this is the GUI of the Web Inspect, which we just got a bit brief understanding. This is another part. This is the dashboard part of the GUI, and this is the front end part of the GUI. So this is the front end part. When you log into Web Inspect, this is the page that we get to see. Now, the other component that Web Inspect provide is the Swagger tool. So we have a Swagger tool provided where we list all the APIs that Web Inspect provide. So now Web Inspect is giving the customers a mechanism where they can utilize these APIs to integrate with their environment. They can use these Swagger APIs. For example, I have a Web Inspect in a scanning need not be initiated only by coming to this tool. Web Inspect scanning can be initiated through command line, can be initiated through APIs. So here I have APIs. So now the customer can utilize the API that has been provided and integrate with his environment to initiate Web Inspect scanning using the API mechanism. Rather than coming onto the Web Inspect tool and starting, he can do it automatically using the APIs. Apart from that, as I said, we have the option of selecting the policies and deciding what exploitation has to be done. This is a sample view of that. I have the policy manager, Web Inspect policy manager, where I have selected standard view. Yani I've selected the standard scan where almost majority of the scanning happens, which includes majority of the scanning. But I do have the functionality here to uncheck if I want my web inspect not to perform any specific kind of vulnerability check on the application. It gives me the functionality and feasibility to select what I want to scan and what I don't want to scan. Web inspect agent based technology. So this is one of the, we also refer this as interactive application security testing. So what happens here is that we involved, there are two components that are involved. One is the web inspect. Now this web inspect behaves as the server, and then we have web inspect agent. Web inspect agent is usually installed into the application server itself. Where the application is hosted, we install the agent within that server. Then web inspect communicates to the agent, web inspect agent, based on the policies that you had defined in the previous segment, previous slide. WebInspect passes on that information to this agent to execute the attack on the application. So now we get more flexibility and our attacks are more faster because the agent is sitting within the application server. It is now very close to the application and then it starts attacking the application. Please do type your questions if you have any questions. Now, what is WebInspect Enterprise? So now, till now, I was talking about WebInspect. Now I'm talking about WebInspect Enterprise. So what is this? What is WebInspect and what is WebInspect Enterprise? So ideally, when we talk about dynamic application security testing, we do have two components of it. One is WebInspect, another standalone, another is WebInspect Enterprise. Functionality-wise, both are same. In terms of use cases, in terms of achievements, both are same. The major difference between WebInspect and WebInspect Enterprise is regards to scalability. See, now I'm an organization where I have multiple data centers at different locations. So now I have to execute, I have different users connecting to the data centers and different applications for different data centers. So now I need to have a centralized view on that. So in that scenario, I need to go ahead with the WebInspect Enterprise. So what is the difference in WebInspect and WebInspect Enterprise is in WebInspect uses only one scanner and WebInspect Enterprise can have one or more than one scanners. And WebInspect cannot be integrated with a central management tool, which is the Software Security Center, which I discussed in my previous slides, the management console. But WebInspect Enterprise can be integrated with my Software Security Center. But however, for WebInspect as well, there is a manual way that you can integrate with the Software Security Center. WebInspect Enterprise manage. So this is what I said, like WebInspect Enterprise can manage larger. WebInspect Enterprise is for larger organization where their IT infrastructure is deciphered into different locations. So I have a WebInspect connecting a WebInspect sensors placed at each of the servers, each of the data centers, and these WebInspect sensors communicate to the main WebInspect Enterprise Manager. So WebInspect Enterprise Manager now is a browser-based tool which gives me visibility across the regions, across the locations on what each of the location has applications, what vulnerabilities are existing in those locations. It gives me the centralized view. And I can, this enterprise can be integrated with Software Security Center. Software Security Center with WebInspect Enterprise. So what's happening here? WebInspect Enterprise gets the functionality to get integrated with Software Security Center immediately. So I can upload the results with Software Security Center, and Software Security Center gives me a glass pane which tells me what applications do I have in my entire organization. say across 5 locations, I might have 20 applications. So SSE tells me out of 20, you have 20 applications and none of them is good to go. All of them have vulnerabilities. Or it can tell me what vulnerabilities are there, or how many team members are working on what application, how much of it is fixed, how much of it is not fixed. It gives me a unified reporting. The Software Security Center gives me a unified reporting across all the applications. The key values, as I discussed for WebInspect, is the scalability, manageability, and it has integrations with the Software Security Center. So this helps share the information with the CSO, CXO level meeting in a better way. So we can share that with the CXO level team, saying that we need so many additional resources, or we need to defer the deployment project because of these number of vulnerabilities getting into picture. So it helps us. It has these benefits over the WebInspect standalone product. But functionality wise, both have the same scanning policies, same scanning engines. Just the scalability and manageability is the difference. Fortify on Demand, on the other hand, is a cloud-based product. So as I told in my introduction slides, we as customers need to buy subscription units from Micro Focus, and with the subscription units, we will be allocated a tenant. So we need to log in, and the credentials would be provided. We need to log into the tenant that has been provided to us, utilize, and this tenant is going to showcase to us what vulnerabilities are there. Sorry, what units we have. So based on the units and availability of the units, we can select either a SAST, DAST, RASP, whatever the scan we want, and then we can start the assessment of our applications. So the additional benefit that we get here is we have scan and scan plus functionality in 45 in Fortify on Demand. So with scan plus functionality, scan is the normal scan that we execute. Scan plus functionality provides us, we do get a dedicated account manager, technical account manager, who helps us understand the vulnerabilities and helps us in explaining them in a better way. So Fortify on Demand, the data centers that we have 4 major data centers in the 2 in the Americas, 1 in the EMEA, and 1 in the APAC region. I conclude my discussion at this level. So I believe we can proceed with some of the questions that we have.
Thank you so much, Siraj. So we can take more questions offline. I would request all of you to write to us. We will be sharing a recording of the video with y'all along with our contact details. So anytime you have any query, you can reach out to us and we will answer all your questions. Thanks again, and I hope all of you have a great day ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Bindya. Bye-bye.